The blue and white world hung in the velvet black of space, a serene jewel. From a silent point high above its north pole, a sleek silver ship watched. It was called the Harmonious Dawn. For 93 of its homeworld's years, this ship and others, like it, had watched the planet below. Its mission was simple: observe the dominant species, the humans, and prepare for first contact. Inside, the air was cool and smelled of ozone. Commander Larin, a tall being with fine gray feathers and large, dark eyes, studied the main screen. It showed the planet Sol 3, with glowing lines marking the borders of its many nations. Data scrolled beside it: population estimates, energy output, communication traffic. It was a busy, messy, divided world. "They are still Tier 7, Lirin said, her voice a soft click. "Pre-warp, pre-unification. Their primary energy source is still carbon combustion. They have orbital presence, but it is minimal and fragile." Her second-in-command, Kai Velum, nodded. His skin was a muted blue, and his 3 fingers tapped a console. "Their history is a cycle of conflict. They unite briefly against common threats, then fracture again. Their last global war was only a century ago. They are emotional, impulsive. Perfect candidates for the Protectorate tier. The plan was set. The Galactic Consortium did not conquer. It uplifted. They found promising species and brought them gently into the galactic fold. Humans, with their surprising creativity and stubborn resilience, were promising. They would start in the labor and artistry tiers, and perhaps, in a few millennia, rise higher. Lirin had chosen the site for the reveal with care: the Korean Peninsula. It was a compact area, technologically advanced, with a stable government. The city of Seoul was a perfect stage, dense, connected, modern. The ship would decloak above it during daylight, a peaceful and dramatic appearance. They would broadcast universal symbols of peace and mathematics. They expected shock, of course. Maybe some panic. Their medics and calming mist projectors were ready. "All systems are ready for decloak," said the sensor officer, a young Felian named Navarra. "Their global networks are active. We are detecting no advanced scanning arrays. Their planetary defenses are primitive. Kinetic missiles and simple lasers." Lirin took a final look at the image of the bustling city. Cars like tiny beetles, buildings of glass, millions of warm-blooded lives unaware of the universe above them. She felt a flutter of what her people called first contact pity, a sadness for the innocents about to be lost, and a hope for the future to be gained. "Very well," she said, her voice calm with authority. "Move to position. Decloak in sequence 3. Broadcast the first peace glyph on all visual and radio frequencies. Let us welcome humanity." The Harmonious Dawn glided silently into position, 20 kilometers above the sprawling city. The cloaking field, a marvel of bent light and redirected energy, began to shut down. First, the stars behind it winked back into view. Then, the silver edge of its disc-shaped hull became visible, catching the afternoon sun. Within 10 seconds, the entire ship, a perfect circle 3 kilometers wide, hung unveiled in the sky. On the bridge, the crew watched the many screens showing the streets below. They saw the tiny figures of humans stop. They saw them point. Cars began to pull over. A silence seemed to rise from the city, a held breath. This was the moment of awe. Then a sound echoed through the ship. It was not from outside. It was from the internal communication system. A clear, calm, utterly composed voice spoke in perfect consortium trade dialect. "Unidentified vessel, this is planetary control. You have entered restricted terrestrial space without a transit code. Please deactivate your minimal shielding and proceed to holding orbit Gamma 7. A liaison will be dispatched to you shortly." Lirin froze. Her feathers lay flat against her skull. Kaval's blue skin paled to a sickly gray. Navara's hands trembled over her console. Where is that coming from? Lurin demanded, her clicks sharp. Is it from the surface? A translation of our glyph? Navara's voice was a whisper. No, Commander. The transmission is not from the surface. It is. It is originating from a point 200 kilometers astern. And it is on a secure consortium military frequency. On the main viewer, the image of the city flickered and was replaced by a tactical map. Behind the icon of the harmonious dawn, 3 new icons glowed a soft red. They were close. Dangerously close. Switch to rear visual. Kavaloom barked. The screen changed. Where there had been empty space, 3 ships now hung motionless. They were nothing like the smooth, organic shapes of consortium vessels. These were angular, matte black, and jagged, like shards of darkness. They emitted no engine glow, no heat signature, no energy readings at all. They were simply there. How? How did we not see them? Navara breathed. The human voice spoke again, the same man identified now as Jun. His tone was polite but firm, like a teacher addressing a slightly slow student. Your cloak technology is adequate for standard electromagnetic and subspace scanning. It is less effective against phased dimensional imaging. This is your second protocol deviation. Deactivate shields and follow the guide vessels. No. One of the black ships, the largest, gave a single, short pulse of light from its nose. It was not a weapon. It was a spotlight, illuminating a path. An order. Rin's mind raced. This was impossible. A Tier 7 civilization could not have sensor, technology superior to the consortium's. They could not have ships that appeared from nothing. This was a trick. A hallucination. Commander. Navara's voice was pitched high with terror. I am getting new scans of the planet. The moon, look at the moon. Rin forced her eyes to another screen. It showed Earth's moon, a gray, pockmarked globe. But as she watched, vast sections of the lunar surface shimmered. Craters and plains faded into transparency, like ice melting. Beneath the illusion, they saw the truth. The moon was not a dead rock. It was a hive. Girders as thick as mountains. Docking ports holding ships larger than small moons. Rivers of molten metal flowing in artificial canyons. Lights by the millions, cities built into the crust. It was a shipyard of impossible scale. By the first song, Koval choked. The data flood hit them. Scans of Jupiter showed the great red spot was, in part, a colossal atmospheric processor. The rings of Saturn held structures woven between the ice. Around Earth itself, the energy signature was not that of a primitive world. It was a dense, layered, planet-wide network of power so vast it made the harmonious dawn's core feel like a candle. The divisions on the map, the nation-states, began to flicker and change. New lines appeared, not of politics, but of management sectors. The conflicts, the wars, the energy crisis, the data was being recontextualized in real time. It was not chaos. It was cultivation. The human, June, spoke once more, his voice the only calm thing in the crumbling universe of the harmonious dawn's bridge. Your assessment of our civilization was based on visible spectrum economics and public political theater. It was an understandable error. Please follow the guide. Your continued silent running is quaint, but it is also very rude. Lurin looked from the screen showing the lunar fortress to the one showing the 3 black ships at their back. The pity she had felt for humanity curdled into a cold, vast dread. They had not come to find a child to uplift. They had, like insects flying towards a lamp, stumbled directly into the web of something ancient, patient, and terrifyingly powerful. With a hand that did not shake. She entered the command to lower their shields. "Comply," she said, her voice hollow. "Follow them." As the harmonious dawn turned, a tiny, obedient silver leaf against the dark ocean of space, the last of its illusions fell away. The quiet blue world below did not look peaceful anymore. It looked like an eye, half open, watching them go. And for the first time, the crew of the harmonious dawn understood what it meant to be the ones who were being contacted. The three black ships led the way. They made no sound. They left no trail. They were simply voids against the stars, and the harmonious dawn followed them like a lost animal. Inside the alien ship, the air was cold with shock. Screens that had shown a simple, divided world now bled with terrifying new data. Commander Lyrin stared at the main viewer. It no longer showed the planet. It showed a technical readout of the ship guiding them. The scan results were nonsense. No engine signature. No life signs. No metal composition the database recognized. It was as if the ship was not really there, just a hole in reality. "Explain this," Lyrin said, her voice a dry whisper. Her science officer, Nevara, trembled. "I cannot, Commander. Our sensors pass through it. We only see it because our eyes. And because it allows us to. It is like a shadow, but a shadow with mass and intent." The human voice, John, had gone silent. The only sound was the hum of their own systems. Kavaloum, the diplomat, broke the silence. "This is a show of force, an advanced bluff. They must have found a wrecked consortium probe, learned our language, and built these illusions to frighten us." Even as he said it, the words felt hollow. The scale of the illusion was the problem. The moon. You could not fake the moon. A new voice filled the bridge. It was a woman's voice, calm and clear. "Harmonious dawn, this is Liaison Suman. Please adjust your course by 0.3 degrees on the vertical. There is navigational debris ahead that your sensors may not detect." On the screen, a section of empty space 10,000 kilometers ahead flashed red. Their own sensors showed nothing. "Who are you?" Lyrin asked, the formal greetings of first contact completely forgotten. "I am your point of contact," Suman said. "My function is to facilitate your understanding and ensure your safety during your transit. The journey to your holding orbit will take 17 minutes. Please observe." A section of the main viewer changed. It showed Earth again, but not as a globe of nations. It was a schematic, like a cross-section. Layer upon layer of glowing networks pulsed beneath the crust, through the oceans, in the high atmosphere. It was a planetary nervous system, and in countless locations under mountains, beneath ancient ruins, at the center of bustling cities, nodes glowed brighter. Control nodes. "What is this?" Lyrin asked. "Home," Suman said simply. "The surface activity you have studied is important. It is where new ideas are born, where art is made, where social dynamics are tested. But it is only the outermost layer. The learning layer?" Kivaloum leaned forward. "Learning? You mean your wars, your poverty, your energy crises? These are lessons?" "They are experiences," Suman corrected gently. "Unified global peace did not make us stronger. It made us complacent. Controlled challenge, managed scarcity, these forces push evolution. They spark invention. We curate these challenges to prevent true extinction while promoting growth." The image zoomed in on the Korean peninsula. It showed the city of Seoul, but now glowing lines connected every building, every vehicle, every person's communication device to a deep subterranean hub. The people walking the streets were unaware. Their lives were real. Their joys and struggles were genuine. But the framework around them, the boundaries of their challenges, were gently, invisibly maintained. "You control them," Nivara said, horrified. "We shepherd," Suman replied. "We protect. A child learning to walk must sometimes stumble, but a good parent ensures the stumble is on grass, not on a cliff edge. We are the grass. The harmonious dawn was passing the moon now. At close range, the illusion was utterly perfect. To the naked eye, it was a gray, dead world. But on the scanners, running on new frequencies Suman had helpfully provided, the truth was staggering. Continents of machinery. Docks where ships the size of small planets were being assembled. The energy output was greater than that of the consortium's home star. Your reports noted our primitive asteroid mining, Suman said. A small video feed appeared. It showed a seemingly crude human probe attaching to a rock in the asteroid belt. Then the image changed. The probe unfolded, transforming into a hungry, shimmering maw that consumed the asteroid in a matter of hours, processing it into sleek, finished metal. What you observed was the seed, not the harvest. Loryn felt a crushing weight. Every piece of data from 93 years of observation was wrong. It was a script, a performance put on for their hidden cameras. They had written long reports on human politics, on technological milestones, on cultural trends. They had graded them. And the whole time, humanity had been reading the reports and grading them. The first contact protocols. Loryn said slowly, our plan to decloak over a populated area with symbols of peace. You knew. We knew the moment your first probe entered the Urt cloud 74 years ago, Suman said. Her tone was not boastful. It was factual. We have monitored all your observations. Your approach was ethical. You chose a non-violent reveal in a civilian center. You had medical and calming units ready. This was noted favorably. Noted by who? Kevalum asked. By Control, Suman said, and by me. Your actions here today were the final examination. A species that offers conquest to a seeming lesser is a threat. A species that offers gentle guidance is a partner. You are on the path to being partners. That is why you are speaking to me, and not to our military containment division. The word hung in the air. Examination. They were not the teachers. They were the students. And they had just finished a test they never knew they were taking. The black guide ship slowed. Ahead, floating in the orbit of the planet Saturn, was a structure. It was not a space station, as the consortium knew it. It was more like a vast, delicate flower made of light and silver crystal. It spun slowly. Gardens and waterfalls visible inside its transparent domes. It was beautiful. It was also clearly a docking port for gods. This is the Chrysalis Terminal, Suman said. You will dock here. Your environmental systems will be compatible. You may leave your ship. We will meet in person. The Harmonious. Dawn, a vessel that had traveled from a distant star to enlighten a primitive world, settled into the docking clamp of the human station with a soft, magnetic click. It was the smallest and simplest ship in the bay. Loryn looked at her crew. Their eyes were wide, their postures slumped. The pride of the Galactic Consortium was gone, replaced by a profound and humble fear. We go out, Loryn said, straightening her tunic. We represent the Consortium. We have made errors, but we are not hostile. We will meet these humans. We will learn what they are. The hatch of their ship opened. The air that washed in was fresh, like a spring morning on a garden world. The gravity was perfect. The light was gentle dots standing on the pristine deck of the docking bay were 3 humans. They wore simple, dark gray uniforms without marks or badges. In the center was a woman with calm eyes. She bowed her head slightly. Commander Lyryn, I am Suman. Welcome to Sol. She gestured to the young man beside her. This is Jun, from System Oversight. Jun gave a short, polite nod. The other, an older man, offered a small smile. This is Hyan, a curator. Loryn stepped forward, her own people behind her. The difference was almost funny. The aliens in their intricate silks and tools, the humans in their plain clothes. But the power here was not in decoration. You have an impressive civilization. Lorraine began, the understatement burning her tongue. Suman smiled. It reached her eyes. Thank you. We have worked on it for a long time. Come, let us talk. There are things you need to see, and a choice you will need to make. She turned and led them away from their ship, into the heart of the luminous flower-like station. As they walked, Lorraine looked through a vast window. She saw the ringed jewel of Saturn, hanging in the black. And she saw, moving between the rings, human vessels larger than cities, their purposes utterly unknowable. She understood now. First contact had happened. But the contact was not with the humanity they had watched. It was with the ones who had been watching them all along. The room they were led to was simple. It had a round table, chairs that adjusted to their forms, and a large window that looked out on the starfield. There was no grand technology on display, no guards. Only Suman, Jun, and Hyan. A pitcher of water and some glasses sat on the table. The normality of it was more unsettling than any weapon. Please sit, Suman said. She poured water for them. The gesture was so ordinary, so human. Commander Laren took a glass, her slender fingers trembling slightly. You said we took a test, Lorraine began, her voice finding its strength. And you said we passed. What does that mean? Hyan, the older man called a curator, leaned forward. His hands were folded on the table. It means you are not a threat. It means your collective intention is, at its core, benign. You came not to conquer or enslave, but to guide. This is a rare quality in a young interstellar culture. Jun, the younger one from System Oversight, spoke. His voice was direct. Your consortium's method is to uplift pre-warp species into designated tiers of labor and service. It is a gentle hierarchy, but a hierarchy nonetheless. You saw us as a resource to be added to your collective. This is not a moral failing. It is a natural perspective for a civilization at your stage. Lorraine felt a sting. At our stage? You speak as if we are children. Suman's gaze was patient. In the context of managed galactic civilizations, you are. Your consortium is approximately 12,000 years old. Your method is to find species younger than you and bring them into your system. It is a linear path of expansion. She paused. Humanity took a different path. We asked a question. What happens after you finish expanding? After you have no one older to learn from and only younger species to teach? The window behind her went dark, then became a screen. It showed a timeline. It began with a familiar image of ancient earthstone tools, fire. It progressed quickly through ages the consortium had recorded, the Industrial Revolution, the Digital Age, the Early Space Age. Then, the timeline did something strange. Around the year 2100 by their old calendar, it split. One branch, labeled Projected Path, Uncontrolled Growth, showed humanity spreading rapidly to the stars, warring with itself, fracturing, and then the line ended abruptly in a red blotch of societal collapse due to resource meaning depletion. The other branch, glowing a soft blue, was labeled Path Chosen, Curated Existence. This line continued smoothly. It showed Earth not being abandoned, but being deepened. Technologies didn't just advance outward. They turned inward. Fusion was mastered, then hidden. Gravity control was invented, then used to build stable pocket dimensions, not just starships. The focus shifted from conquering space to understanding existence. We reached the technological point of galactic dominance roughly 4,000 years ago. Hyan said softly. And we looked at that future endless, empty growth, and we chose to stop. We built control. Our mission was not to rule the galaxy, but to safeguard the potential of our own species, and by extension, all life we might encounter. A new image appeared. It showed the Galactic Consortium as a small, glowing cluster of stars. Then, the view pulled back and back and back. Dozens of other clusters appeared, some dark, some glowing with strange, hostile colors. The galaxy was not a quiet neighborhood. It was a crowded, dangerous forest. You were unaware of most of this, John stated, pointing to the darker clusters. Your sensors are not yet calibrated to see the truly ancient threats or the truly advanced silent ones. You have been living in a relatively safe corner of a very large room. Suman took over. 74 years ago, your probe entered our outer perimeter. We identified its origin. We began a long-term study of the consortium. Your culture, your ethics, your art, your assessment of us as a Tier 7 species was a useful fiction. It allowed us to observe you, your natural state. K'Valoom, the diplomat, found his voice. It was thick with emotion. So everything, our years of work, it was all a game to you? No, Suman said, her voice firm but not unkind. Not a game. A diagnosis. We needed to know the character of our nearest interstellar neighbors. Were you predators? Were you careless children who would attract the attention of the dark things in the forest? Or were you potential gardeners, like us? She gestured, and the starfield returned to the window. Your actions today confirmed the latter. You decloaked over a city of millions, but you had taken precautions to minimize panic. You had no weapons charged. Your first transmission was a symbol of peace. You came to talk. This was the final data point we required. Rin's mind was reeling, trying to fit the new reality into the old framework. And what if we had failed? If we had come with weapons ready? Chun's face was neutral. Then a different branch of control would have greeted you. The one responsible for quarantine. Your ship would have been gently moved to a distant, empty system. Your memories of this place would have been edited. You would have returned home believing first contact failed due to a technical fault. And we would have placed a silent barrier around your consortium for your safety and ours. The chill that went through Rin was deeper than space. The power implied was not just to destroy, but to erase. To quietly move an entire civilization like a piece on a board. But we passed. Rin said, needing to hear it again. You passed, Suman confirmed with a nod. You demonstrated a fundamental respect for other sentient life. Therefore, you are now being given a truth that fewer than 10 other species in this galaxy know. You are being shown the room beyond the safe corner. Hyen stood and walked to the window. The universe is not what you think. There are forces that consume galaxies, not for resources, but for patterns, for consciousness. There are ancient wars that sleep. Humanity does not fight these wars. We manage them. We contain the outbreaks. We have been doing so for millennia, ensuring that pockets of life, like your consortium, have the time and peace to grow. He turned to face them. You thought you were making first contact with a young species. You were wrong. You have, instead, made first contact with the caretakers of your corner of the galaxy. And now you have a choice to make. Silence filled the simple room. The pitcher of water sat in the center, a tiny, mundane object in a conversation that had shattered their understanding of everything. What choice? Rin asked. Suman smiled. It was a warm smile, the first that seemed to hold genuine emotion. The choice of what happens next. You can take this knowledge back to your consortium. You can tell them that humanity is not a subject for uplift, but a senior partner they never knew they had. That we offer not membership in your hierarchy, but a place at a different table. A table concerned with stewardship, not just expansion. Or, K'Valoom asked, or, John said, we can help you craft a story. A story of a failed first contact, of a species not yet ready. You return home. The consortium continues on its path, unaware. We continue our watch. The galaxy remains for you a simpler place. Loryn looked at her crew. She saw the fear in their eyes, but also a dawning, incredible wonder. They had come seeking to add a new leaf to their tree. Instead, they had discovered that their entire tree was growing in the shadow of a vast, ancient forest they never knew existed. The simple room, the calm humans, the water on the table, it all seemed like a stage set. But it was the opposite. It was the first real, unvarnished thing they had seen since arriving. This was not a performance for them. This was a briefing. You are giving us this choice, Loryn said slowly. Because we earned it. Yes, said all three humans at once. Ryn looked out the window at the stars, at the ringed planet, at the impossible, flower-like station that housed them. The path of safety, of ignorance, was there. They could go home to their old lives, their old understanding. It was a kind offer, but she was a scholar, a seeker. The truth, no matter how terrifying, was the only thing that ever mattered. She straightened in her chair. She looked at Suman, then at Jun, then at Hyan. We will take the truth, Commander Loryn said. We will take it home. The silence after Ryn's decision was heavy, but it was not hostile. Suman nodded, a look of quiet respect on her face. Jun entered a command into a thin panel on the table. Hyan poured more water. The truth has many layers, Suman said. You have seen the first hour nature. Now you must see the second hour purpose. And the third your new reality. The window darkened again, but this time it did not show stars or timelines. It showed a region of space, far from the familiar constellations of the consortium. The view was from a high vantage point. Below, a spiral arm of the galaxy glimmered, but a section of it was wrong. It was not black, but a sickly, pulsing violet gray. It looked like a wound or a spreading stain. This is the scourge of Anath, Jun said, his voice clinical. It is not a species as you understand it. It is a consciousness that exists as a pattern of decay. It moves from star system to star system, not consuming matter, but consuming order. It turns complex life, complex societies, into static, silent, perfect crystals. A form of ultimate entropy. The view zoomed in. The violet-gray haze was actually made of billions of tiny geometric shapes, locking together, spreading. At its edges, they saw the faint, fading glows of what must have been starships, defenses. They were frozen in mid-action, beautiful and dead. 27 of your years ago, Hyan continued. The leading edge of the scourge reached a star system 70 light years from your consortium's outermost colony. You never detected it. Your sensors interpreted the energy signature as a natural nebular phenomenon. On the screen, new lights appeared. Sleek, dark human vessels, hundreds of them, arranged in a vast, complex grid around the encroaching scourge. They did not attack the violet-gray mass. Instead, they began to emit a pure white light. The light wove itself into a net, a barrier of shimmering energy. Direct conflict with the scourge is futile, Jun explained. It incorporates any aggressive energy into its own pattern. We do not fight it. We contain it. We build walls of stabilized reality around it. We quarantine it. Loryn watched, mesmerized and horrified. The human fleet worked with silent, terrifying coordination. The wall of light grew, connecting, solidifying. It began to curve, eventually forming a perfect, immense sphere around the entire violet-gray infection. The sphere shimmered and then faded to invisibility, leaving the area of space looking empty and normal. The system inside is still there, Suman said. Frozen. The lives within are paused. We cannot reverse the scourge's effect, not yet. but we can stop it from spreading. We have erected 79 such containment fields along this galactic front. We maintain them. We watch. Kevaloon stood up, leaning on the table. You have been fighting a war. A silent war. On our border? To protect us? To protect all nascent life, Hyan corrected gently. Including yours. Your consortium is a vibrant, growing culture. Your music, your stories, your collective search for meaning, these are things of immense value in a universe that tends toward silence. You were worth the effort. The weight of the statement settled on the aliens. They had flown their proud ship across the stars, feeling wise and advanced. They had been, all the while, like children playing in a garden, unaware of a silent guardian standing at the fence, holding back a wildfire. Why? Navara, the linguist, whispered the question they all felt. Why do this in secret? Why not warn us? We could have helped. Sumin's expression was one of deep sadness. Could you have? If we had appeared to you 27 years ago and shown you this threat, what would your consortium have done? Rin knew the answer immediately. Panic, militarization, a frantic, fearful buildup. Perhaps a preemptive strike against the anomaly, which you say would have only fed it. Exactly, John said. Fear is a fuel for the scourge. Disorder is its tool. Your unified, peaceful growth these past decades has been your best defense. Our secrecy was our weapon, and our gift to you. The screen changed again. It showed the galaxy once more, but now it was overlaid with a faint golden network. It was a web of lines and nodes impossibly vast. It hummed with soft light. This is the steward's lattice, Hyan said, pride finally entering his voice. It is not a government. It is a commitment, a silent agreement between the few civilizations who have reached our understanding. We do not seek empires. We seek gardens. We tend, we prune, we protect. We have watched over the consortium since we found you. Your great discoveries in physics? Often a gentle nudge from an unseen hand. Your avoidance of certain cosmic hazards? Not luck. Every triumph of the consortium, every peaceful century, felt different now. It was not solely their own achievement. It was curated. It was allowed. Rin felt a storm of emotions, humiliation, gratitude, awe, a profound sense of smallness. So what now, for us? You give us this terrible, wonderful knowledge and send us home. Then what do we become? A garden you tend forever? Sumin shook her head. No, that is the third layer of the truth. The choice you made to accept this knowledge changes your status. You are no longer just a garden. You are being offered a set of gardening tools. Chun brought up a final image. It was a symbol. 2 rings interlocked. One was the blue and green of Earth. The other was the golden tan and brilliant rings of Saturn. This is the sigil of the stewards, Chun said. If you take this knowledge home, and if your consortium accepts it, you will be invited to join the lattice. Not as a subordinate, as an apprentice. You will learn to see the threats you cannot yet see. You will receive technology not for war, but for stabilization and protection. You will begin, in a small way, to help us watch over your own corner, to become guardians yourselves in time. The offer was so vast it was meaningless. And yet it was specific. It was a path forward from the shock. And if our consortium does not accept it? If they call us mad? Kevaloon asked. Then the memory editing option remains, Sumin said softly. For them, not for you. You would live with the truth alone. But we believe they will listen. The evidence we will give you is undeniable. Lorraine looked at the symbol of the interlocked worlds. It was simple, beautiful. It represented a responsibility, beyond anything her people had ever imagined. Not the responsibility to rule, but the responsibility to care for the flame of life itself. The fear was still there, but underneath it, something else was growing. A sense of purpose so profound, it made their original mission seem like a child's game. They had come to find a new species. They had found, instead, a calling. "We will take the evidence," Liren said, her voice stronger now. "We will take the truth. And we will take the sigil. We will ask our people to join you in the garden." Sumin, Jun, and Hyan all smiled. It was the first time they all looked genuinely relieved, as if a great burden was shared. "Then," Sumin said, rising from her chair, "your real education begins. The universe is much bigger, much stranger, and much more in need of careful hands than you ever dreamed. Welcome to the work." The journey home for the Harmonious Dawn was quiet. The ship was the same, but the crew inside it were changed people. They carried data crystals of impossible density. They carried the sigil of the interlocked worlds, now displayed humbly on their ship's outer hull. And they carried a silence filled with too many thoughts. Commander Loren spent much of the time at the viewing window, watching the stars stream by. They were not the simple, distant lights she had known. Now, each one was a potential garden or a potential wound. She saw the galaxy not as a map to be explored, but as a living, breathing entity to be cared for. It was a frightening and beautiful new way to see Dot when the familiar stars of the consortium's core worlds finally appeared. A strange feeling settled over the ship. It was the feeling of coming back to a childhood home after learning the secrets of adulthood. Everything looked the same, but nothing would ever feel the same again. They were expected. Their long silence after the planned first contact had caused worry. A small fleet of consortium vessels, led by the flagship Eternal Song, moved to greet them. On the bridge of the Eternal Song, High Scholar Tvek awaited, his expression one of concern and confusion. He saw the unfamiliar symbol on the Harmonious Dawn's hull. "Harmonious Dawn, you are overdue. Report. Was first contact unsuccessful?" Tvek's voice crackled over the calm. Rin took a deep breath. "High Scholar, first contact was successful, but our understanding was incomplete. We have returned with the representatives of Sol. We request an immediate audience with the full conclave. What we have to share will redefine our place in the cosmos." There was a long pause. "Representatives? We see only your ship." "They are with us," Liren said simply. A moment later, the image on Tevivek's screen split. Liren's face was on one side. On the other, appearing as if they had always been there, were the calm faces of Sumin and Jun. They wore their simple dark clothes. "High Scholar Tvek," Sumin said, bowing her head slightly. "I am Sumin, and this is Jun. We speak for the stewards of Sol. We thank you for your gentle approach to our world. We have much to discuss." Tvek's feathers stood on end. The humans were on the Harmonious Dawn, but their transmission signal bypassed all the consortium's communication protocols, peering directly on his most secure screen. It was the first small proof. The conclave was assembled in a state of emergency. In the great circular chamber, the leaders of 100 species sat, their murmurs a storm of anxiety. The Harmonious Dawn crew stood in the center. Liren, Kavoloom, and Navara looked small before them. "We went to Sol thinking we would meet a young, fractured species," Liren began, her voice echoing in the hushed room. "We were wrong. We did not find children. We found the guardians of our nursery." She nodded to Navara, who activated the data crystal. The chamber dissolved into light. They saw the moon, its illusion stripped away, revealing the fortress shipyard. They saw the scourge of Anath, and the human vessels weaving their cage of light around it. They saw the steward's lattice, the golden web of care across the stars, with their own consortium a small, glowing node within its protection. Gasps, cries of disbelief, and sounds of terror filled the chamber. Some delegates stood, ready to denounce it as a trick. High Scholar Tvek just stared, his old eyes wide. When the presentation ended, the silence was absolute. Then Jun spoke. His voice was calm in the storm. Everything you have seen is true. For millennia, your growth has been observed and, when necessary, gently guided away from existential threats you could not perceive. Your peace was not an accident. It was protected. Suman stepped forward. The humans on the surface of Earth live their lives in honest struggle and joy. They are the heart of us, the source of our creativity. We above, in the hidden places, are the hands. Our purpose is not to rule you, but to offer you a partnership, an apprenticeship in stewardship. An insectoid delegate from the Zil Collective clicked angrily. You speak of protection, but you hid. You deceived. This is not partnership, it is patronization. Yes, Suman said, meeting its multifaceted eyes without fear. It was, because you were not ready. Would you have trusted us if we had appeared in glory? Or would you have feared us, fought us, wasted your centuries in a pointless arms race? Our secrecy was the kindest option. Now you are ready for a choice. She laid out the same choice even on the station. Ignorance with edited memories for the conclave. Or knowledge with all its terrifying responsibility. The debate raged for hours. Fear warred with curiosity, pride with humility. Some called for the humans to be seized, their technology taken. Lrin watched these speakers with a new pity. They still fought in terms of conquest. They did not understand the scale. Finally, High Scholar Tvek, the oldest and wisest among them, raised a frail hand. The chamber fell silent. I have led the consortium for a long time, he said, his voice thin but clear. I have always felt, a quiet in our corner of the galaxy. A luck that seemed too good. I called it fortune. He looked at Suman and Jun. It was not fortune. It was gardening. He turned to the conclave. They offer us not chains, but a purpose greater than ourselves. They offer us the chance to stop being children, to stop being merely users of the galaxy, and to become its caretakers. I see no higher calling. I vote to accept the truth. I vote to take the sigil. One by one, the others followed. The vote was not unanimous, but it was decisive. The Galactic Consortium chose to see Dot in the weeks that followed. Change began, but it was quiet. Human advisors, with names like Minji and Taiyang and Daeyeon, began to work with consortium scientists. They did not give weapons. They gave sensors that could see the dimensional fractures where threats like the scourge could emerge. They gave stabilizers that could strengthen a star going unstable. They gave lessons on cosmic ecology. The Harmonious Dawn was refitted. Its new mission was not to seek new species for uplift, but to tend to the ones already known, checking on them with new eyes. As a gardener checks for blight or drought, Lin stood once more on the bridge of her ship, now called the Tending Hand. The sigil of the two worlds glowed softly on her console. They were heading back out, not as explorers, but as stewards. Their first assignment was to visit a pre-industrial world on the consortium's edge, a world they had once scheduled for first contact in 500 years. Their job was not to contact them, but to quietly scan for any signs of the scourge's resonance. And to ensure their natural development was safe, she looked at the star field, so familiar and yet so utterly new. They were not at the top of a galactic hierarchy. They were part of a hidden, gentle network of keepers. The supreme power in the galaxy had turned out not to be a conquering empire, but a silent society of gardeners. And now they had been handed a trowel and a watering can, and asked to help Dot. It was a better story, Lrin decided. A much better story than the one they had gone to write. She gave the order to engage the new, smooth engines a gift from Sol, and the tending hand moved forward into the vast, beautiful, and carefully tended garden.